Okay, how many techniques are there? I mean,
remember how big he was on like the wide 9,
Did
like
he
against
really just say
Miami?
that?
There was 9.
I'm like,
now we're pushing it to
12.
That is true. There can be a 12 technique.
Okay.
A 9 is officially the widest as it'll go. But if somebody were to say 12, in my mind, it would register as like I would totally get what they're saying. Like, dude, he was a 12 technique. I'm like, God, that sucks. But I know he did not just break down that offensive line play. Like they were turning too much.
I have
we were holding too much. Too.
I have a philosophical question for both of you. You've heard the tree in the forest,
yeah.
right? Like if a tree falls in the forest, no one hears it? Did it really make a sound? You've all heard.
No
this
one was there.
Yeah.
Didn't make a sound.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Sure.
Yes.
So I've got one for you guys.
Roger.
If it's max protect, but Kyle Rudolph is blocking, is it really max
no,
protect?
It's not. It turns into just a regular like 62.
So I want to ask you both, Courtney, Cronin, and Alex Boone in studio here. What is to be done with the offensive line? You've got a whole notebook, Alex, full of things
I know, right?
that you noticed on Sunday. But I mean, as we go forward here, there are other teams who also have players who are good at football on defense. Right. And I don't know how they're going to stop them, especially now in 2016, you guys couldn't stop anybody either. But easy. Sam Bradford, it's true, threw the ball. He got rid of the ball quickly. This quarterback does not. I know. So give me answers here.
No, and I think that's one of the things that you say, how did we get him to get rid of the ball? Like, I'm looking at this game this week, and I'm like, man, I get it. It's New York. It's in New York. That doesn't scare me. I mean, they're not really big fans. Their crowd's not crazy. But I see an offense that could somewhat look like this last offense that beat this defense. And it's just quick throws, and, hey, let's just keep running the rock as much as we can. And let's throw everything we can at them, and we're going to run the ball as fast as we can. We're going to try and get the playmakers the ball. Oh, hey, by the way, Golden Tate's back. One of our more physical receivers who, by the way, likes to jaw, chirp, fight, swing a little bit. Mm-hmm. So that's the kind of guy we need for this week. I don't think that their defense is stellar by any stretch. Like Janoris Jenkins is still trash in my mind. I think that when you catch a ball that Vernon Davis doesn't want to catch and it bounces off his face and you catch it, you're just in the right place at the right time. I got you, dude. But nothing really scares me. But the fact that they have this momentum going, right? All of a sudden it starts to say, man, they've won 2 games in a row. I wonder what their locker room is. And not only that, you turn around and look at our locker room. We just lost to Chicago against the backup quarterback.
Yeah.
So what is our locker room saying right now? Hey, listen, guys, we really need to step it up this week because after this week, we're playing a really good team that doesn't have a back end, but their front 7 is ferocious.
Right. And that's where the concern would really be is Philadelphia and bringing this offensive line against Philadelphia's defensive line. Fletcher Cox, Brandon Graham, a number of great players.
Which way do you slide? Rudolph, hey, we might have to undress you this week. We're going to have to pull somebody on the tight ends to chip.
And the guy that they used, the first-round pick that was traded for Sam Bradford, also Derek Barnett is quite good. So, Courtney, what is the answer here? I mean, people have asked me, should they bench Garrett Bradbury? I don't think that that's crazy at all.
Well, I mean, Bradbury has not been good. 13 pressures, 1 sack in 4 games.
For a center, that should just never happen. Most of the time, you're just helping.
He's too little. Right?
You're in the middle.
I know.
But they're smart. Has anyone noticed how defenses are starting to play all these teams? Like all these new teams. Another team I'm looking at right now is like the Rams. The Rams offensive line and this offensive line have a lot in common, right? Like your left tackles are really old. One of them kind of shows up. One of them doesn't. You're looking at the centers. They're young. All these young centers, defenses are going, hey, listen, let's just put 5 up there.
Yeah.
They automatically, no offensive line, no anybody is going to let a linebacker walk up in the center and go, that's not our guy. Like this guy right here that's a total threat up the middle is not our guy. No offensive line coach can let you do that. They automatically go, hey, listen, throw the hand up, show them 5-0, po, whatever you want to say, and then everybody's on an island. And then they're saying, hey, listen, you don't even have to come. Just stand there. Did you notice in the come on, man? Did you see the one against Detroit where the guy just walked up? Because the threat of him even being there, the center's like, God, I got to stay right here. I have to stay
because
right
the center's not anticipating that the quarterback's going to call him out and say, that's my guy. I've got that protection.
There's no chance the quarterback's going to be like, that guy up the middle, you leave him to me. Like no quarterback in there because they're in their mind, they're thinking, man, that's 2 steps away from getting flattened. And that's a quick like Diggs. If you don't run this route to complete perfection, I'm getting smoked. And you can't do that. Mm-hmm. And you can't sit there and go, well, now you need to keep your backs in because now the defense is going, well, now we're just going to rush one more. And now all of a sudden we're going to chip guys. Well, now we're just going to keep adding guys on to rush. And we got all these pass rushers, so we're just going to keep throwing them at you. Let's go.
And the funny thing is, like when you're talking about that, where, teams do use standard 4-man rushes, and that really did get to Kirk Cousins a lot. I think 5 of the sacks, 4 of the 6 sacks were off of standard 4-man rush. Think about what happened on that would-be touchdown, the 37-yard pass that just out of Thielen's reach when he overthrew it. They had 6 guys in the box on that.
I know.
Like, that to me is just, I'm baffled at that because we talked about, like, people want to blame the offensive line for what happened. And yeah, there were a lot of issues with protections, but that's on Cousins.
Yeah.
Like, especially with the type of protection that he sees in front of him and just the number of guys that they're not sending in.
Right. I wish he could just take like a chill pill. Like, I wish he could in his mind be like, hey, listen, I got really good protection right now. Let me make a good read. Instead of being back there like, oh my God, who's coming first? Who's going to hit me first? Because that's what he's thinking back there. Like, I got to get rid of this ball right now. Too late. Got to go.
And that makes him play slower. Like, he's getting rid of the ball slower, I think, because of all those things going through his head.
He's had time.
I think it takes his reads through his mind faster. So he doesn't give them time to develop. Even when he has good time to sit back there, he's not like, hey, Diggs needs one more second. He's thinking, my left tackle just got me plastered. I don't want to get plastered again by Khalil. Now I'm going to go here. Now I'm going to go here. Now I'm out of options because I can't go back in order. Like, I can't just go look back. Right. I got to go, and then I'm gone, dude.
And that's how you end up with a check down to the fullback.
Every time. Dude, CJ Ham's going to be like the number one threat on this team.
He played 9 snaps.
Incredible.
Like, that's the thing. 4 targets on 9 snaps.
And I know we're talking about like this past game.
Target percentage in history.
But don't you think they abandoned the run a little early?
Yeah.
14 carries.
That they weren't down that much.
You're down 2 scores the whole game. Not even.
That same thing played out. Exact same scenario last year where they abandoned it after the second quarter. And that's one thing I was curious to get your take on this because it didn't look like they were trying to force things outside. No. I know Mike Zimmer said yesterday, yeah, we had some outside runs in there. Well, what happened? Like,
I know exactly what happened. Some guys weren't getting to the linebacker. Because I'm thinking the same thing you're thinking. I'm like, man, who is stopping Dalvin Cook right now? So all these wide zone plays, I go back, rewatch them. Looking, all right, who's his center call? Center's got his mic. So the next guy's the right guards. The next guy after that's the left guards. Okay. All of a sudden, 2 guys just filling every single hole. And you're like, well, wait a minute. If a man's got nowhere to go, and if you can't get somebody to step up and then cut, which is where you would need a tight end to start blocking, or you would need another outside, because they kept doing that. We used to call it like a deuce formation. Anything with the D and head in front, deuce, dot, stuff like that was 2x2. Automatic. So they ran a lot of that deuce formation. And it was 1 tight end on the ball, 1 off the ball. And they kept running zone, but they kept getting stuffed. And what they should have done was said, hey, you know what? We're going to flip it. We're going to go the other way. Let's go weak zone. Let's got all the stragglers and all the party guests. You go sit on the right side with Rudolph, and we're going to run the ball to the left. And yeah, you know what? Maybe Khalil Mack's going to be there. And maybe our left tackle could maybe just once block him, and we could have our running back just run through somebody.
Yeah. Was it you that said tight ends bring the guys to the party?
Always, baby.
Yeah, that's great.
Well, what is it about, just to follow up on that, the left side of the offensive line from Bradbury on, like, that's the part that struggled the most. Like, what are you I mean, you're talking about Reef right there, and he's looked awful this year.
It's bad. I mean, it's to the point to where you're not even getting a kick. And that was always like, when you're talking about offensive line play, the one thing you have to always utilize is the snap count. Like, you always have to be ready to go. Like, I used to hate guys that would be like, man, I'm late out of my stance. I'm like, why? How were you late? How do you not know the snap count?
A lot of the best left tackles look like they're offside.
Dude, they look like they are with the ball. As soon as that ball starts moving,
Bakhtiari,
they're fluid.
that's his thing.
Bakhtiari, Tyron Smith, Joe Staley. I mean, they make it look good, right? And then you talk about guys that are just laid off the ball. Like, dude, that is such a simple thing. What are you doing? He doesn't even get to the point to where he can get one full kick because he's so slow out of his stance that he's already open by the time. And then once you do that, you have lost all your power. If you open up to a rush, especially to a He-Man like the guy we just saw.
Yeah, boom out.
I mean, you open up your chest to that, you're asking for trouble. That was ridiculous.
Now, how do they answer any of these problems? And, well, let me move on to the next point of it, because I don't think there is an easy answer, right? There is no like, well, if they only do this, 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 and this, right?
No, there is. I mean, you have to be more creative. You're looking at this offense. You look at these like Matt Nagy offenses, right? And to me, they're always so fun. Every time they break the huddle, because I'm like, where's Tariq Cohen going to be this time, right? And to me, it's always a number system, because when we used to play, we used to have running backs, and when they would line up outside, we would have a number system. So from the far left, you'd be a 1, and then if you were in the slot, you'd be a 2. If you were by the tight end, you were 3, and then the other side of the ball was 4, 5, 6. So it's always like, where's he going to be? And then most of the time, he's like a 2 or a 4. But every now and then, you'll see him like over here by the tight ends. It's like super exciting, and then all of a sudden, he'll do a quick motion, and you lose control. Like, what is this play? Oh, it's a zone. But it's so creative, and it's so like, oh my God, you need to start doing more of that. You can't just be like, hey, we're going to line up in the eye and kick your face in. Sorry, dude. We tried that for 4 weeks. It didn't work. Now we got to change it up.
If they had the Dallas Cowboys offensive line, I think it'd be working great.
Way different.
Isn't that the same with every team though?
Oh,
well,
absolutely.
Sure, but I mean, like you're saying, like lining up just straight and running down your throat. This isn't going to work with this offensive line for a full season.
Right.
And really, even in Green Bay, it didn't work super great for most of the game.
He
It
got
worked
one
great for
cutback
one play.
lane,
Right.
and a 75-yard touchdown.
Well, okay, let me ask you guys this, Courtney. Rick Spielman building an offensive line. I'm not going to go through all of the signings that didn't work out perfectly. I'm not looking at anyone in the studio while I say this.
I know. I know nobody wants it. No, you don't. I'll wait another couple weeks.
All right, okay. I'll just I'm
we
going to
go.
move quickly past that. But
Okay.
this offensive line right now, we always get, why don't they invest? Why don't they invest?
Yeah.
Why don't they invest?
It's hard.
On the left tackle, you have a $54 million player. The left guard, you have a draft pick. The center, you have a very high draft pick. The right guard, you have a $10 million guaranteed player. And the right tackle, you have a second-round draft pick. And yet, they're rated by PFF the third worst. And as Alex would tell you, you didn't necessarily need PFF to help you with that one. Why can they not build an offensive line?
That's so tough to say because nowadays they're not pushing guys out like they used to. There aren't Matt Slossons that want to go out and just eat your soul. I mean, it's just not happening anymore. These guys come in and they're like, "What's a huddle?" You're like, "No way, you just said that. You cannot be serious with this." They're like, "Where do I stand in the huddle?" Oh my God, somebody put something through my eye, just a knife. Because they're like, we came from a college that they would hold up blue, and that meant power.
Right.
Well, which way? I don't know. The quarterback would tell us. Like, dude, oh my God, you don't even know which way you would line up without knowing which way you were going. That would drive me nuts.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of sounds like wide receivers who don't know what a route tree is when they get to the pros.
We wouldn't know anything about
Wouldn't know anything about
we
that
would
at
know
all.
nothing about that.
Well, what do you think, Courtney, in terms of the front office's failure to build an offensive line that can pass?
Well, think about here, like the scheme that they wanted to run. So they bring Gary in, saying, okay, outside zone. That's what Gary's known for. We're going to find the players that fit that. And so they get an athletic guy like Garrett Bradbury, but they know he's too small. Like that was always the thing that, like, when you look back at when they drafted Pat Elflein, I don't know exactly. I mean, it sounded like Sperano kind of wanted to mix fronts, and he wanted to use a bunch of different blocking schemes, and it was kind of a hodgepodge, right? I mean, you were there at the beginning of that, so that was kind of what that felt like?
A little bit, though, but that was because we had AP, we had Jet, we had a lot of different guys in the backfield that we could use. Like, when you use AP, you're like, dude, ISO, power, all this fun stuff, but he can also do the zone. Jet was like our zone guy. We had a ton of backs back there, and so it was like, hey, let's do what we're good at. And you're right. It was a little bit of a hodgepodge, and it kind of mucked some things up because you were worried about so many different things and so many different schemes. And you're like, wait a minute. Did he say we're trioing this week? Because like last week we were, now we're not. Now I don't know. And you're in the middle of the game. And sometimes that would mess you up. But you're right. When you talk about Garrett Bradbury, and we talked about this before, when you're in the North, you're playing some stout defense.
Yeah.
Like these defenses now are for real.
Especially like the nose tackles and the defensive tackles, your
Big
three
boys.
techniques, all that.
And you go out and draft the smallest, tiniest guy, like, hey, you are going to control the North. Not a chance.
Because he played well against Clemson.
Because he ran an outside zone scheme in college. There's a million reasons to think why they thought it was a good idea, because in theory, on paper, it's the right fit, right? Like, I mean, it looks good. They said the same thing about Brian O'Neill last year. I mean, it took him a little bit. He came along much quicker than most people thought, and he's fantastic right now. He's the best offensive lineman that they have.
Easy.
But wait, who's the best offensive lineman they have?
He means easily.
Easy. I thought it was like easy, Courtney.
No,
yes.
Great.
No, I mean, but like there was even kind of that. They were going off the prototype of what they wanted. I think maybe they're going too much prototype, thinking, okay, this is the perfect specimen that we want. Yeah. And it's not realistic to the outside linebackers you're going to face, to the defensive ends that are going to maul your face off. Right. It's those types of things where you're thinking, okay, in theory, this is what we want, but realistically, it's not working.
Here's my feeling on this, and it's felt this way about the Minnesota Vikings since I've been here, really, is that they chase trends, they don't set them in almost anything. I mean, sometimes Zimmer on defense, but that's how it feels a lot of times. And I think that watching the Los Angeles Rams over the last few years, they thought, well, we've got to go with these lighter offensive linemen who could do the zone thing, right? We've got to have these zone linemen because that's where the play actions come from and everything else. And that's how Delvin will succeed in the run game. But a little bit of the issue you mentioned, Alex, and I've been thinking about more often with putting five guys up there, having Trey Flowers lined up over the center last year when they played the Patriots. Trey Flowers, generally a defensive end, but they would put him over the center sometimes. Like, why is that? Oh, because he could murder Pat Elflein off the line of scrimmage. So now I feel like what you needed instead was big human beings, especially at the center and guard positions, who can match with some of these 3 techniques, who look a lot more like defensive ends than they do nose tackles or defensive tackles like they used to. I mean, we have all John Randalls now, it seems like, and then massive human beings like Eddie Goldman. And I don't think undersized offensive linemen are as sexy